Good evening, everyone. This is Back Garden Reads, and today we're going to be talking about the book The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. This book is famous, or at times infamous, for its ideas of political power and political means. Most of all, the saying of "it is better to be feared than loved, if not both." Infamous for being the book, the dictator's handbook, in some way. The irony of that, Niccolo Machiavelli wrote this book in reference to the rulers of previous history, of the past, and how they ruled, what happened to them, why they failed, how they succeeded, and so on, so on, so on. It's much more of a political book than you might actually think. And on top of that, he was very much against the idea of monarchy. He didn't like it of his day, which is quite impressive for a man of the 16th century. And just in that context alone, it's quite amazing. He was such a far-thinking man that if he'd be no different to quite a lot of the people that you might meet on the streets today. Now, there's a lot of things in here that a lot of people tend to read this like in conjunction with things like the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. They see this as a philosophical book. They see it as almost in combination with something like the 48 Rules of Power, which you really shouldn't follow. Like, if you follow that as sort of a guidebook, you're just setting yourself up to become a sociopath. You don't want that. You don't want to become a sociopath. You want to be you. You want to be you. You don't want to do something that's so alien to what you really want to be. And you shouldn't view that you shouldn't view this in how to live your life or how to be. You should view this as a criticism of politicians, of politics, of rulers, of leaders of nations. You can use this as a sort of warning of sorts. You can use this as a way to understand certain groups of people, certain contexts of history, and so on and so forth. This given context that helps you understand the world at large and the history of so many events. And it even helps that he uses examples of historical context, and you can even apply a lot of this to modern day. That's how well this political treatise, I think I pronounced that incorrectly, but I don't know. But that's the point. But that's what this is about. It is about understanding people, leaders, and the people above you, how they can be good rulers or terrible ones, and how countries can live and die with how it is run and who it is run by. And that's a very important thing to learn for anyone in this day and age, especially with how divisive everything is, especially in US politics and the political sphere in the English-speaking world. However, I'm not going to get into that. That's not something I'm interested in at all. Okay, here comes the cat. Okay. It is customary for those who wish to gain the favor of a prince to endeavor to do so by offering him gifts of those things which they hold most precious, or in which they know him to take especial delight. In this way, princes are often presented with horses, arms, cloth of gold, gems, and such like ornaments worthy of their grandeur. In my desire, however, to offer to your highness some humble testimony of my devotion, I have been unable to find among my possessions anything which I hold so dear or esteem so highly as that knowledge of the deeds of great men which I have acquired through a long experience of modern events and constant study of the past. The results of my long observations and reflections are recorded in the little volume which I now offer to your highness. And although I deem this work unworthy of your highness's notice, yet my confidence in your humanity assures me that you will accept it. Knowing that it is not in my power to offer you a greater gift than that of enabling you to understand in the shortest possible time all those things which I have learnt through danger and suffering in the course of many years, I have not sought to adorn my work with long phrases or high-sounding words, or any of those allurements and ornaments with which many writers seek to embellish their books, as I desire no honour for my work but such as its truth and the gravity of its subject may leave justly deserved. Nor will it, I trust, be deemed presumptuous on the part of a man of humble and obscure condition to attempt to discuss and criticize the government of princes. For in the same way that landscape painters station themselves in valleys in order to draw mountains or elevated ground, and ascend an eminence in order to get a good view of the plains, so it is necessary to be a prince to be able to know thoroughly the nature of a people. And to know the nature of princes, one must be one of the populace. May I trust, therefore, that your highness will accept this gift in the spirit in which it is offered, and if your highness will deign to pursue it, you will recognize in my ardent desire that you may attain to that grandeur which fortune and your own merits presage for you. And should your highness gaze down from the summit of that eminence towards this humble spot, you will recognize the great and unmerited sufferings inflicted on me by a cruel fate. That's the introduction Machiavelli gives. And you can see, in a way, and I hope you can understand, that it's not about being a dictator, it's understanding the success and failures of the past and how one can apply that to themselves and the future. Unfortunately, the great misunderstanding that most people have, they say it's a dictator book, it's all evil and blah blah blah. Well, not necessarily all evil, but it's gotten a bad reputation for the reason that a lot of characters in fictional media are often described as Machiavellian, manipulative, just terrible people, fear-mongering and everything like that. That's the stray cat that likes to be stroked and have my attention. This is the thing that's most well known, and that's the of cruelty and clemency, and whether it is better to be loved or feared. And it's a quick chapter in which he talks about how sometimes if you are too gentle a person. Okay, let me use a fiction in example of Machiavelli. And it is to do with Game of Thrones, and specifically Tywin and his father. The father, I think it's also is Thailand or Tywin. I'll put it in. But anyway, the father wanted to be loved so much by all his vassals and all his people that he would always forgive and forget, and would lavish these people with gifts, gold and titles and all these sorts of things. And one of the things about that is that throughout the whole part, he's known as the Laughing Lion because he forgives and forgets too much, everything and too much all at once. And he often gives and gives and gives, trying to be loved. And that's, you can see in here. And you can see that all the people, all his supposed vassals and anyone else, they start to take advantage and gain more power over him, to increase their land, their wealth, everything. Eventually, it becomes so bold, it cares so little about their liege lord, that they start just openly doing rebellious things. In contrast, his son, Tywin Lannister, one of the greatest characters in Game of Thrones, at least one of the greatest sub-villains. You see that he finds everything unacceptable, and he will enact great cruelty, cause great suffering, if it means it will have people respect him, understand his position of power. And that's how the reigns of Castamere happened. That's how the exterminations of two great houses, the Song of Ice and Fire. And it was such a brutal display that everyone started taking him all seriously again and started fearing them and everything like that. And for a while that worked. That brought power back to the Lannisters. However, later on, that comes to bite him back. He has learned to rule with absolute fear. And the problem with ruling through absolute fear is that eventually people will go like, I don't want to be afraid anymore. I want to live a happy, bright life. If the only way I can live a happy, bright life is if I kill this man, then I will do that. Because this man is oppressing so many people through fear that eventually you get people like Robb Stark who are like, no, fuck that. We're going to show him that he's not someone to be so fearful of. And you can see that Tywin is constantly beaten by Robb Stark, because Robb Stark is actually a good tactician. And you see that with Tywin, he's constantly doing things through fear and fear and fear. And he built up this reputation of being untouchable, that when someone so violently rejects that and actually beats him lots of times, he sets up the entire Red Wedding. One of the cruelest things that could have been done. However, that becomes his downfall for the reason that people like the Tyrells see, oh, this is a man that we absolutely cannot mess with. He is one of the most dangerous men we could possibly go against, and we need to remove him from the Game of Thrones as quickly and as efficiently as possible. It is because of that fear, that unwillingness to bend, that ultimately breaks him. It is highly suggested that he was already poisoned, with how the corpse smelled in the set, how he was just having the foulest of bowel movements when he was on the toilet. He was eventually killed by Tyrion. It reinforces it. Tyrion used to fear his father all the time because he was a strong and powerful man and he could do anything. Look, you hear about his wife, what Tywin did to her. When he realized, this is a spoiler, when he realizes wife of his was not some common whore, that fear that he once had for his father becomes cold, ruthless hatred. So much cruel, ruthless hatred that he did not hesitate to kill his father. And that's what ultimately happens when you rule too much by fear. There will be people that will eventually be like, I no longer want to fear for my life, for my family, for anything. I will just kill him and remove him from the face of the earth, and the world will be better off for it. And that's the reason why he ultimately died. Because he could not show love. He could only show fear. And he never showed love to his son, Tyrion, who needed it the most. He could not show love for his daughter Cersei. He could not show love, not true love, not show his love for his son Jaime. And it's through this constancy of building up fear and hatred for his son Tyrion that is his ultimate demise. That in fiction in itself is a very good understanding of Machiavelli's The Prince. And I have no idea if George R. R. Martin actually used this as part of reference. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. And so it's a great fictional example of why ruling through fear alone is not a good thing. Ruling through love, through compassion and to be adored is also not a good idea, especially with Tywin's father. And so, reality, the lesson is that you need to be a mix of both. Be willing to show your love for and care and appreciation for the people, for your citizens, for your underlings, for all that, while also showing that you are not afraid to dish out punishment, willing to punish transgression. And that's just one example that you can learn from this book. Now, you can find this anywhere for free. It is in the public domain on the Internet Archive, and just look up The Prince and then just download a PDF for it. You can do that. No doubt audio book readings of The Prince, there always is. You could even just find it in the library. Considering how big this book is, not big as in size, because this is roughly 100 pages long. Really not long. Big in how it casts a shadow over history and the influence and how much you can use it in your own life and understand people, how you, if you were a boss of some kind, could learn from it. Oh, fucking damn it. Sorry cat. It's just sorry audience too. There's a fucking mosquito. And there is several lessons, several chapters in here that you could definitely learn from, and I would totally recommend it if you are so inclined. Really, there's no reason not to read it or listen to it, because again, it's in the public domain. You can access it anywhere, right? You can access so many different translations, and this is just one translation in particular. And so for that reason, I completely recommend you read The Prince. If you want to understand politics and of the past, that can definitely be applied to the current day. It even talks of military, of mercenaries, soldiers and all that. It's quite a substantial book for how small it is. And so I highly recommend anyone read this.